To begin.
Are you watching closely?
To begin.
Clytus, I'm bored.
How to start.
What plaything can you offer me today?
Hello to anyone who's still subscribed. Hello. My shows are still on an indefinite hiatus. My Movies by Minute shows, the Existential Trilogy, which is also coming to a weird end. And that end hasn't happened because I haven't gotten back to editing, because editing has gotten to be way too much of late. That being said, I have been doing a different show, 50v20, with my daughter. The 18th episode comes out this week. And it's very simple. We're basically looking at LGBTQIA plus representation in media, one ship at a time, and that's been fun. Although that show might also be coming to a sort of premature end soon, because we only have a handful of episodes recorded and unedited left, and we haven't recorded the next batch yet, because, you know, both of us have ADHD, both of us have some autism, and we are hard to be consistent on certain things like that. Plus, my brain is constantly still harping on old ideas and new ideas. Like, you haven't heard the big, long description where I talked with Luke Allen as a guest. He was a guest on the Existential Trilogy, and then there was also probably what was going to be 2 or 3 episodes of this show, because it ended up a very long conversation about an idea I had for a sort of podcast movie trivia game show thing. And that is still stuck in my head, doing some version of that. The problem is it was actually 2 different shows that I kept trying to find a way to twist them into one show, and they didn't quite ever cohere properly. One was a basic quiz show, and it's simple, but it was a quiz show kind of like if you've ever watched Dropouts, Actually, kind of like that, where it leaves a lot of room for people to talk about their answers and talk about what their answers or their wrong answers make them think of, and get people talking about movies by giving them trivia questions about movies, rather than just trivia, answer question, winner. And I'd still love to do that, but it's going to take some production value and better editing skills than, my editing skills are fine. It's just, I tire of it. I'm weary of editing. Meanwhile, I'm trying to keep this episode short because I want to edit it and actually put it out this week just for a whim. Because I might continue this show a little bit. It'll only work if I can do it regularly and if I can do it weekly, and I don't know if I can do that, so if I keep them short, I can do it weekly. Because the other things that are in my head right now is, I've been doing, I think I've already talked about this on this show, I was kind of prepping a future D&D homebrew situation with the world where I wrote a bunch of short stories and a few novels years ago. A world that was called Bass, now called Basara, and a country called Guardia. In world, it has changed its name to Olgardia, but I've expanded more on the world and the mythology of it. If you follow me on Instagram, Robert E.G. Black, you can find a lot of drawings lately that I've been doing of the 27 gods of Basara. And it's been fun to get back into drawing, which is a nice creative outlet. I've also been watching a lot more movies lately. First half of this year, I hadn't watched a lot of movies. I was catching up on a lot of television and watching a bunch of old TV shows I had missed, catching up on some shows I had been watching. And now I've been watching movies. The last few weeks, I've been watching like 2 movies a night on average, which is fun. Or maybe not on average, maybe slightly less than that on average, because I don't watch movies every night. Sometimes I go out. Saw a play last week. What was that? That was the play called The Sound Inside. Hope to see Hadestown in the next week. And tonight is Thursday, so I'm going to be watching Critical Role, not a movie. I've been watching a lot of slasher films, so in addition to thinking about Basara and wanting to write a very specific story set in Basara that is called Four Finger Discount, at least that's the working title, and involves a couple characters that have been in my head for years because I made one of them for Dungeons & Dragons as a backup character. This is probably 6-7 years ago now that I made the character of Kill. Yes, his name is Kill. And he's been stuck in my head ever since because he has a built-in sort of backstory that gives us a villain angle. And it is very unique, and it is about characterization, and I would love to play him in a very role-playing heavy game, but then that never happened. So he's been stuck in my head, and I want to write a story involving him. And then this other character I made, Audra, Odds is her nickname, is a character I made when I had a chance to play on someone's Twitch stream doing a Tales from the Loop game. Except I never got to do that because it turned out the first arc he had done of Tales of the Loop actually took longer than he expected, and so he never got to the multiple groups. He had gotten people to be like, oh yeah, I want to play that, let's do it. And there was going to be a chance to be on a Twitch stream, which would have been amazing. And then it fell through because the game was taking longer than he had expected because he hadn't actually run a Tales from the Loop game before. And so odds was made for that, and so that's set, in the modern world. But her personality still fits with what I want in a sort of medieval fantasy world. And I figured out a way to pair her with Kill as main characters in a story, along with a couple other characters, including the last character I played in a D&D game back when I had Kill as a backup character. One of my other backup characters, I only played him for 2 sessions. His name was Cecil Moody. I have a version of him that's going to show up in this story. I have a character named Resko, which is a version of a character I had made as a D&D backup more recently. And just a way they twist into this new story that expands on the mythology and the current history of Basara as I'm figuring out mythology for this potential D&D homebrew campaign coming in the future whenever I finish the Curse of Strahd game. And it's just all these things are twisted in my head along with, because I've been watching a lot of slasher films lately, a specific idea for a slasher film that I think is very unique. And can I spoil it here? Do I want to spoil it here? Oof. Yeah. I'll spoil it here because if somehow I actually manage to make this thing, and I could, is the thing. It's cheap, low budget horror film kind of material where you just rent a cabin and film, you get your cast out there, and you make your thing. It's a self-contained setting. By now in this show, I was gonna say pet peeve, but it's the opposite. The thing I love is time loops, so my mythology around Basara revolves around a loop in time with this one god creating the universe so that the universe can happen so that god can be created, and it loops back, and that ties into the plot of the D&D thing. And might tie into some short story or something that I'd write. But also this horror film is sort of, if you watched Westworld, say season 1 or season 2 especially, where you have stories happening that you don't realize are happening at the same time or are not happening at the same time, but is edited together so you can't quite figure that out until it becomes really important in Act 3. And so it's basically a slasher film taking place in one location over 3 different time periods, but put together in such a way that division of the time periods is not clear from the beginning. And it feels like something that hasn't been done, and it also feels like something that could be done relatively easily. So, 2 different things that I really want to write when I get to winter break, but you know what happened last year when I tried to plan for writing something during winter break? You know what I did during winter break? No writing whatsoever. Yeah, if you had no writing whatsoever on your bingo board, you are correct. I just hope it goes differently this year. That's basically what this show is. If this show continues, the first syllable is a fantastic sort of title for an ongoing show about creative process, and in particular for me, because of ADHD and autism and being busy with teaching and family things and everything else, is that it might be the fact that I am constantly just coming up with ideas that never really go anywhere, but I hope not. I hope not. Yeah, I hope not. Anyway, this show might be around again soon, or maybe this is a one-off just as an update to let you know, hey, I still exist. Because I do. Find me on Blue Sky or Twitter, Threads or Mastodon or Facebook or Instagram at Robert E.G. Black.
Cut. You're still here? It's over.
Stuff that dreams are made of.
It's a passport.
Go home.
To another world.
Go.